individuals, excellent. These 3 individuals are heroes, as far as I'm concerned. I know, you can be humble, that's fine. But to me, these guys are the real heroes. And I just want to drive that home. And for different reasons. I'm just going to introduce each, and then I'm going to shut up and let these guys do the talking. So first of all, Joel, who you've heard talk, and obviously, what I really admire about Joel is he did the hard thing and he's living off crypto and rejecting that dirty fiat. That's what he's doing. And we can really admire that he's done that the hard way and really stood for what he believes in there. And that makes me admire this man a lot. So you should all appreciate that he's here today. Okay, Kieran, Railgun is a privacy protocol built on top of Ethereum. And that is like absolutely critical if we want to achieve real privacy in cryptocurrency. So, everyone praise this man as well. And last but not least, is Amir Taaki, who, when I first joined Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in 2013, 14, when I was a little baby Bitcoiner, this is one of the guys I really looked up to, and he was one of my heroes. And this is a man who's fought for freedom in many different ways. And he's done a lot of sacrifice, and he's done a lot of hard work for where it counts, for very little glory for this space. So I think you should all get to know Amir Taaki better as well. And this is the moment when I retreat and let the Cypherpunks do the talking. Thank you.
Hi. So a couple questions first. First, is it just one microphone today? Okay. Second, oh, there's 2? More coming. All right, that's fine. Second, what do you want us to talk about?
Since I'm moderator, let's start with what does it mean to be a cypherpunk? Like, how would you define that? What does that mean to you? I mean, it's easy to say the word and virtue signal, but what does that actually mean?
I'll let the other end of this start here, Amir.
So, Cypherpunk, to understand it, I think we should look at the history. So it comes from the cyberpunk movement. And, then with the development of cryptography in the 90s, there were people who were heavily influenced by cyberpunk. And they said, oh, we can use cryptography as a means to, fight against this surveillance system. And I just want to note that about cyberpunk is that it's always very dystopian. So that's some kind of trap as well that we kind of need to think how to escape from. All this, if you look at all the cyberpunk literature and movies, there's some all-pervasive surveillance state, oppressing people, and there are freedom fighters living on the edge of society, resisting heroically against the odds, against that. And we kind of see this mental trap today when we look at, a lot of the cyberpunk type products that are in the market, and they all have they all go like, oh, you don't want the state to spy on you. And it's very negative, emotion that they're tapping into where, we end up responding against that. So, cypherpunk, it's part of our legacy, but it's also a mixed legacy. And I just wanted to offer that critique.
Yeah, I guess, just carrying it forward from the Solarpunk, Lunarpunk panel, right? You've got 2 components of the word cypherpunk. Punk being kind of like Amin's definition for it, sort of a moral entrepreneur, right? Pushing some of the boundaries on the ethical side of things, in a good way, not in a bad way. And the cipher thing, obviously relating to cryptography. So, the cypherpunk movement trying to, promulgate cryptography as a tool for extending some of the rights to privacy and security that we enjoy in the physical world over onto the digital world as well.
Yeah. So I never signed up to be a cypherpunk. I never thought of myself as one. I'm just a user, and I want freedom. I want maximum freedom, and I use the tools that allow me to have that. But I guess how you could kind of break that down is pretty much everyone in here can probably use their bank card to buy 99% of the things they want right now. And that's freedom, I guess, but it's freedom that you're allowed by someone who would restrict it. They could censor your bank account. They could do whatever else. And so for me, like the cypherpunk, the punk part is making sure you have that freedom whether or not people would grant it to you willingly. And the Cypher thing just is like, I've been part of like the freedom movement for longer than I've been in the crypto movement. And it's a tough losing battle to be protesting, to be going through legislatures and public policy and writing papers and think tanks. That's a tough battle. And I think that the renewed fight for human freedom across the world has owed its thanks to technology, radical technology, new decentralized tech, permissionless tech, as it were, that kind of gives us the tools to not just have to ask permission to be free, but to actually be free. So basically, freedom tech. Users or pushers of freedom tech is kind of how I would define it.
Okay, I've asked another question. Since the Cypherpunk manifesto was written, I believe it was in the 1980s, if I'm not mistaken. 92, thank you. Since that was written, and since we've had Bitcoin, and since we've had all this explosion of cryptocurrencies, how do you feel about the cypherpunk movement today and where that is at?
I guess we'll just do wave format, right? Here, and then back. So I think it's strong and healthy in all the right ways. It's definitely split around a little bit. Before, in the early days, in the crypto world especially, it was like a lot of hardcore Bitcoiners. And the Bitcoin movement was very heavily cypherpunk. And then a lot of those ended up shifting. A lot of those are still in BTC, by the way, which is a little surprising to me, but it is what it is, right? But then you have a lot, for example, many of them sort of shifted over into Monero, and then the other sort of privacy type protocols. Seems like privacy is a key area where you kind of see all of this. It seems to be less, from my like almost external perspective, to be the principles are alive and well, but they're very distributed now. It's not like you have this core group of people as much that are the same movement, that are all aligned on principles, that are all pushing this. It seems like you have pockets of people here and there. And a lot of people, like, for example, just to randomly mention someone like Paul, who's on the last panel sitting right here, I would call him like an absolute cypherpunk, but he's also, a tech business person, in California, right? And a lot of people might have sort of dispersed into the greater normie world, maybe. But I think the principles are very strong and alive. At least that's my impression. A lot of it seems to have like grown up in some ways, or just dispersed and not been just this one kind of cohesive group anymore. That's just my impression. I could be very wrong, though.
Yeah, I think. Okay. Probably dox my age a little bit here. I'm a little bit too young to have been around with the OG cypherpunks. But I think like a lot of that movement, like I found quite inspiring. Like reading up on the whole crypto wars and the fight to like have cryptography like actually publicly accessible and not classified as on the same grade as like a nuclear bomb or something. Like mathematics is not a weapon, but like. Nowadays, I think the movement has sort of grown a lot in some ways, right? Cryptocurrency has brought a lot of people in, but it has also, in some ways, sort of diluted the values a lot. And there's like, I guess there's benefits to having sort of like a big tent movement. You end up having a lot of supporters, but at the same time, you can't really, like, you got to make sure that you don't lose focus on, like, what you're actually here for, like, what matters.
So I'm going to provocate a bit because, first of all, about freedom. Freedom is deeply connected with the concept of nature. And when we talk about nature, we're not talking about the number of trees. In the same way, when we talk about humanity, we're not talking about the amount of people. Nature and freedom is, about a society that is striving, it's moving up, it's ascending. And our role as revolutionaries is to increase that which is true and beautiful and good. And, when, Bitcoin in 2011, 2012 was invented, many of us saw that it was an inevitability that had finally arrived, something that was the herald of a new age, that we would just need to sit back, relax, and it would play out. And that's exactly what everybody has done. And the promise of cryptocurrency was that it would, it's a highly liquid form of money that can be sent anywhere in the world. It's something that allows people to evade, paying fees to your local nation state. And it's something that essentially renders the business model of nation states obsolete. And yet, we're here in 2024, and that vision has still not materialized. So something went very wrong there. And you kind of, you see it here in this conference where there is a lot of, talks about regulatory compliance. And crypto regulation is an open and official provocation against liberty and sovereignty, and all who advocate for it are domestic enemies of the people and must be absolutely opposed. The right of people to use and to deploy cryptography is something that should not be infringed. And right now, we are essentially trapped inside of the cycle of industry where we look at big tech, surveillance capitalism, and we go, that is the gold standard for how we need to operate. And as a result, we're not able to construct the technologies that people need. Those people, they create technologies to enslave people. That's why it's this very dystopian vision of technology where you have a product and everybody is reduced down to essentially cattle or sheep that are to be herded using psychological techniques to extract value out of society. And, it's not a user base that's empowered. And that's why the products we're creating are so bad, and we haven't been able to deliver that power into the hands of people. It's a mental trap. We're actually enslaved. We, who claim to be fighting against the system, are actually entrapped by the system. And, everybody, when you speak to everybody, everybody feels in the next 5 years or so, there is going to be a major event of macroeconomic or political significance. We don't know what it is, but we know that there is some impending thing about to happen. And it's reflected in the media. It's reflected in the sci-fi, which, you compare it with the sci-fi from the 90s and the sci-fi which was all really optimistic, with visions of the future. And now it's all very brooding and depressive and dystopian. So widely in society, there is this pervasive mistrust of the elites. And yet you come to conferences, this is not the worst, this is quite good, but a lot of crypto conferences where, privileged people working on technology are saying regulatory compliance, and yet that is not what the people are feeling. The people, the fact is that there's so much media about criminals, and I'm not saying that we're criminals, we're very different from criminals, but the fact that there's so much media glamorizing criminals just shows that people have this instinctive feeling that that there is an occupation by the nation state into our lives. It's a foreign occupier. It's no longer something that holds legitimacy. So clearly, the Overton window has shifted, and to really take advantage of that, we need to rally, we need to mobilize, we need to step up. And so far, it's not good enough what we're doing.
This is why I love Amir Taaki. Really, the heart and soul of this movement is right here on this stage. Now, another question. If I were to paraphrase the Cypherpunk manifesto a little bit, I think one of the parts that I feel that's often forgotten as part of this movement is I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Cypherpunk movement was about a widespread adoption of privacy-preserving technologies and freedom technologies. I think in this industry, we tend to forget about that widespread part of that definition. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I could actually start this then. That's kind of a little bit how I've sort of shifted over the years a little bit. In 2015, as many people know, I stopped earning fiat currency, only earned crypto since then. In 2016, I closed my bank account thinking like, ooh, I'm going to be, Mr. Cypherpunk, live off this stuff. The interesting thing, though, is, and I have to be slightly self-critical in this way, but also a lot critical of a lot of people I like to a greater degree, is at some point, we're LARPing. LARPing is live action role playing. And as much as literally everything Amir said is like spot on in my heart, it's like, yay, preach, preach. How many people who fist pump to that still have bank accounts? How many people have all their money still in confiscatable assets? How many people, still use Google Maps to get everywhere? How many people, do all those things? Or how many people also maybe in their personal life sort of reject all those things, and then they have a very limited kind of life where they get to feel morally superior on the internet, while the rest of the people, the planet, the human species, then just is still living in the same kind of enslavement that the very privileged few get to pontificate against because they have the circumstances in life and the lack of family to feed, et cetera, that lets them, play like hardcore cipher nerd on the internet a little bit. I'm being a little dramatic to sort of emphasize the point. But at some point, this stuff needs to make the human race better off, or it is fucking pointless. And so, as much as, I kind of had to kick my own self in the ass a little bit, because there were a few years in there where I was feeling too comfortable being like, oh, I'm hanging out with my libertarian buddies in New Hampshire, and I get like, this guy will sell me, goat's milk for crypto, and this one will do this, and I have an arrangement with that. And look, I'm so fun and pure. I'm doing all this stuff. But what does it serve the world? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And then, okay, I can podcast about it. I love to podcast. That changes the world. I mean, a little bit, but for the most part. At some point, I think we need to start onboarding new users. And a lot of new users are not just people who are willing to go through the annoying hurdles that we did, that are willing to have like a million different VoIP numbers and all this kind of stuff and graphene on your phone. And sometimes that, as great as that is to promote, at some point we need scale. We need to start not just, and part of that, of course, is the scaling debates. And I think that a lot of these, I'm going to make everyone angry today. I think a lot of the Bitcoin and Ethereum, to a lesser extent, but mostly Bitcoin to begin with, the scaling restrictions happened partially because of outside economic forces trying to take things over, but also because of the useful idiots of the cypherpunks, of the people that are saying, I want to run my node at home. I like my little thing. I want to keep LARPing as a cypherpunk. The whole rest of the world, they don't matter. It doesn't matter if this freedom technology never gets out there. It doesn't matter if everyone else is using fiat except me. I get to run my node and rebalance my channels and all this kind of stuff. And because of this, the world should suffer. Because of my privilege, the world should suffer. And I just reject that. And I have to admit, this is a difficult balance because it's two opposite things. The more principled you are, the more lonely you are. The fewer people can do that, the harder it is. At some point, at the other end is full KYC, lack of self-custody, everything, which is no. The answer is no to that. At some point, we have to find the spot where we can cause the most aggregate freedom to the most of the human race. And of course, if you onboard everyone to a custodial solution, sure, you touch everyone, but you touch everyone in a not very meaningful way. If you have absolute everyone compiles their wallets from the source code and does everything else, and there's like 300 people that do that, that's like the maximum for like very few people. So somewhere there's a math equation of total freedom. It's like the freedom factor multiplied by numbers of people that are using this equals total freedom. At some point, we have to have a hard look at ourselves, and I don't know the answer, by the way. I'm not talking to you like I know where this is, but we have to find the way to maximize the total freedom for the human race. Otherwise, our principles are on the whole meaningless, even if we personally like them.
All right.
I'm sorry.
That's a hard one to follow. Like meme coins, right? So
You chose the right direction.
Why is that the only thing that like we seem to be able to build that has any semblance of mass adoption? I think the problem here is, yeah, as you said, the only thing that user experience sucks, right, in crypto. And for things where like maybe the benefit's not so obvious, we're not going to be able to get very many people to jump that hurdle. Okay, and now, right, user experience sucks, but like what is the thing that gets people to jump that hurdle? All right, fine, it's meme coins, or it's basically number go up. Right, so now everyone's building for number go up faster, right? Okay, now we're like, we're optimizing for number go up faster, which means user experience for everything else sucks even more. And now we've got an even higher hurdle. And like, how long have we had 12 words for? Like that, can we get something better already? I think the problem here is just the incentives at the moment are just so messed up that we end up optimizing, and we're going so like laser focused, but literally laser focused in some cases, right? On these like completely pointless. I mean, they're funny, but they're completely pointless use cases. Can we devote some effort into something actually useful, please?
Yeah. So there's two things here that I want to. The first was the question about, how do we step up? But the second was about this obstacle, which was framed in terms of, a purity towards absolute privacy and then compromise, which I think is mistaken. But about that second thing, which I address first, so I spent many years in the free software movement, squatting buildings. We would squat buildings. We would, create these communities where anybody could come. They could work on political technology, and we'd invest a lot of energy into creating these communities. And our idea was, that people would come there, their minds would be opened, and they'd go, oh, "This is a really good idea," and somehow this idea would infect people. Seeing how we live would kind of infect people, and it would organically spread. Now, when I went to Syria, it was an eye opener, because I went there as an activist and who was very much into this idea. What he mentioned, meme coins, memetics. This is a very fashionable thing in protests these days. Like, if only we can get the catchy slogan that spreads, and everybody, and then suddenly we have free society. But what happened in Syria was that the government imploded, and the Kurds, which had an organized movement, a cadre, 10,000 cadre, who had been fighting Turkey for decades, studying political philosophy in the mountains, really well organized, really well disciplined, were able to go into that chaos, and they were able to mobilize people. They were able to arm people, form them into self-defense committees, organize society along the arms of, economics, education, healthcare. And it was very eye-opening because I was able to see firsthand how a new government is constructed, or how society forms itself from zero. And the thing is that, it's not a tendency to it's not about compromise or about having an ideology or having firm principles. I'd say it's about, are you living a lifestyle, or are you working towards like a higher purpose or a higher sense of ideal? And this is something that has infected politics, this like very hyper-individualist. It's something from liberalism, from the system, which it says like, oh, don't try and change the world. That's mistaken. That failed in the past. Look at communism. No, just try to change yourself. Try and change your hair color, or bits, or your fashion. But that doesn't change anything fundamentally. So, that tendency is called lifestyleism. It's positivism is a tendency where you go, oh, humans, they operate like, mechanical machines. And, you give them this meme and they do that, and you give them this other meme and they operate in a different way. But people are also driven by stories, by narratives. And, we can work, you can have movements which are not driven by just immediate self-benefit. There have been many times in history where people came together around a common shared sense of purpose, shared ideals, and they tried to put that into practice. To give really practical examples in the domain of technology, when I was a teenager, I discovered about open source software, and my friend said to me in school, he said, oh, have you tried Linux? And I was like, Linux, what's that? And he was like, oh, it's an operating system. I was like, an operating system? And he was like, yeah, you've got Windows and stuff on your computer. You can change that. You can put other ones on there. I was like, whoa, really? And he was like, yeah, and this one, it's made by people all around the world, like people together contributing code, building the technology. I was like, wow, that sounds incredible. And the more I went into it, I was like, wow, this is the new economy on the internet, people building this technology. And I read the manifesto of Richard Stallman, which is a manifesto for free software, where he was saying, we can build a vision of technology that's liberatory. And as a 16, 15-year-old, that blew my mind. And I was like, wow, this is something I'm going to devote my life to furthering. This is an exciting project that I want to be involved in. Another example is the Silk Road. I remember when the Silk Road first came about, it wasn't just the marketplace. I would meet people that didn't even know that I was working on Bitcoin, just random people who would say to me, oh yeah, there's this marketplace where you can buy and sell everything, and it's undermining the governments. And people saw that as a sense of purpose. And Dread Pirate Roberts, he had manifestos on the front page, and people were really infused by that vision and ideal. So that's the first thing. But about this second thing, so, there's this, everybody knows that the software we're using today is slower. The computers have got faster, but somehow the software is sluggish. It's slow, it's less responsive. And also, the cool technology that we saw in the movies of the 90s or the 80s, the cool future that we were promised never materialized. You kind of see the desire in cryptocurrency projects where they kind of make this like terminal-esque, like this like UI that looks like old keygen, keygen crackers or terminals, but it's in a web browser, so it's like a simulacrum of this vision from the 90s. And also, I read a headline recently, and it said Gen Z they don't know how to use a file system, and they can't use printers. So they've actually like regressed in terms of technology. They've gone backwards. So, you know, when I was when I initially was working in Bitcoin, when I got into Bitcoin in 2010, 2011, everybody was like, you know, like constantly talking about the evil of the central bank, and there was this like singular focus or vision that we need to like destroy the state. But then, you know, as Bitcoin started to grow bigger in 2011, there started to come all these business guys and like all these like, and the main narrative at that time, which now in Bitcoin is like, it's cool to be a cypherpunk who is against the system. But back then, the main narrative is like, oh, we need to get the big banks involved, and you know, we need the regulations, and everybody was talking about mass adoption. And I'd get people who would come up to me at conferences, and they go like, oh, Amir, you know, you're a developer, you're an expert in writing software, but I am an expert in marketing. And let me tell you how marketing, and they're like, you know, we need to appeal to the masses. We need to get mainstream mass adoption. So there's always this mass adoption meme. And that is something that really killed the free software movement. The free software movement in the early 90s had this idea that we were going to build operating system, free software that would bring freedom to society. And that was like a grand vision or a grand purpose. And you know, everybody started building that, and as it started to get bigger, all these business guys started to come in, like happened in the early history of Bitcoin, and they started going, oh, you know, talking about freedom is scary. It's going to scare away the business people. It's going to scare away the investment. So we actually have to get rid of the ethics, and we have to focus on utilitarian things. And that was the birth of open source. Open source was about saying, it's not about freedom software. It's just the open source is cheaper, it's more secure, blah, blah. And then what happened is we got rid of the ideology part of free software. And then, you know, all the big business and the money started to flow into open source. And then around 2000s, you know, everybody was, you know, that was the big thing, mass adoption of open source software. And you got things like Ubuntu come along. And this is kind of where Linux went wrong, because they kind of looked and they said, oh, what's the gold standard? The gold standard is Windows, it's Mac. And as opposed to Linux, which was very innovative in the early 90s, so it was creating software technology that people were like, whoa, I could not imagine this software could exist. Post-2000s, it became derivative. It started just playing catch up. And the thing is that market of, you know, like mainstream normies that, you know, are completely disempowered is already captured by big tech, you know, surveillance capitalism. And, you know, the freedom software has a completely different market. I see now that there is a change happening in Linux, a kind of Linux renaissance, where there's a soul-searching moment, where people are kind of going, okay, what was it that initially gave us power in the first place? What was it that was allowing us to innovate and deliver technology that you know, that expanded the design space? And you're seeing now that there's this realization, okay, a Linux, it's not a Mac and it's not a Windows, it's a Linux. Linux has a fundamentally different economic value proposition to Windows or Mac. When you use Windows or a Mac, you are a customer, and there is a corporation, and you are taxed by that corporation. It's the same with any proprietary software product that you use. But when you use Linux, you are part of a community. You are not just a user, you are also a developer. You are a participant in developing that piece of technology. In fact, that piece of technology is an aspect of an economic network. The technology exists to build infrastructure, to allow communities to band together, to have power, and to have economic power. That is not what that other types of products are aimed towards. And when we base our development decisions off of those other products, we're essentially, and this is the problem with crypto now, where, you know, we're stuck in this paradigm where we're like, okay, and this is why and I explain the whole paradigm, how it starts. Like you have an idea, and you grab some cheap devs and you get them to hack up a proof of concept, and you go to parties with all the cool VCs, and maybe you take drugs with them, and then they go, oh yeah, let me write you a check, and they give you like some money, and then you use that to hire marketers. You don't really hire devs because you're not really building technology. You hire marketers and you send them to conferences, and they give speeches. And you keep pumping
Amir,
the thing.
I do want to interrupt you because we need to make sure you have time to speak later. But what I would like to do now, because we have a lot of questions in the Slido, if we can pull that up, and if we can knock out maybe one or two. Oh yeah, also we did this poll. Are meme coins the path to wider adoption? Yes. I'm really happy to hear that most of you feel that no, use case is important. So if we can go ahead and switch to the questions, and then we can do maybe one or two.
Sure. Let's see here. I need to stand up to see this. And I'll read it out for you so you guys don't need to. Do you agree that there's too much compliance, too little counter-economics, and agorism in crypto? Oh, and also, a round of applause for Amir for his stance. Come on. All right. To answer the question.
Yes.
Okay. Kieran?
Yes.
Amir?
Yeah, I'd let them talk. Go on, answer.
Let's just go to the next question so we can save some time here. Why are meme coins not useful? You make money and at the same time stress test the network.
That is useful, for sure. I'm not going to deny that. It's not important to what I care about, but it's important to what other people care about. I'm not here to tell people what they can and can't do. That's not very Cypherpunk.
Yeah, I think there's two things to this, right? So like one, sure, yes, it does stress test the network and all, but like in terms of like the people actually like using the meme coin, like they just have it sitting there in a wallet and they're like hit and refresh on the price all day, right? That's really like how does that make your life better? Maybe the joke's funny, right? And then the other side of it was, like number go up, right? And like fundamentally, I think just like a pure redistribution of wealth system, like it's just one person wins, the other person loses. There's again, same deal. How is that making people's lives better?
Amir?
I mean, as a builder of technology, I can easily be resentful against meme coins that seem to have like usurped with no work, easy path to wealth. But I do have like artist friends who were telling me for more than a year going, oh yeah, Sonic Obama Inu coin is going to be big, and they were like big believers in it, and indeed like it just suddenly shot up recently, and I was like, how did they even know about this stuff? So from my experience trading, I'm always hesitant to completely dismiss things that I don't understand, and I understand tech, but I don't understand like art and meme coins and NFTs and stuff. It's not my area.
It's hard to bet on stupidity. Sorry. This is actually, I had the same question actually, so I'm glad someone else brought it out. Oh, it's gone actually. Well, I'm just going to repeat the question what I saw. What are the practical things people can do today as users and as developers to help promote more freedom in the world?
Yeah, we got to think about the principles of what we're trying to accomplish here. And the second part is we have to actually make those work. So there's a Morton Blackwell quote I'm very fond of, which is you owe it to your philosophy to study how to win. Notice you have to have a philosophy first, and you have to apply it, but then you have to study how to make that win. So I would encourage anything that removes a part of someone's life from the control of the powers that be, get anyone you know to use it. Try it. Like, hey, download Signal, encrypt your messages, start off there. Oh, VPN, okay, very small stuff. But then download a crypto wallet that's self-custodial, learn about it, buy something from convince your local farmer to do that, and start off small. at some point, if you're very committed to what you're doing, you have to figure out how to make it win. And you have to ask yourself, is it winning? And if it's not, you can't blame, like that's the thing with the meme coins. I don't care for meme coins, right? But I can't blame them because if I can't compete with meme coins, it's my fault. It's not their fault. It's not their fault. Well, they took away all the, no, I didn't do a good enough job to compete against them. Either they're there and they're always gonna be there and that's fine, or I lost to a meme, I lost to a dog with a hat, right? And so a lot of us lost to dogs with hats. You take the hit, shake it off, come back and learn from it.
We can laugh about it at least. Kieran.
Well, go see my talk from yesterday. If you're using, if you're an online user, right, there's a whole bunch of alternatives to, common services that I went through and my own experience using them. Make the switch. And then 2, go delete your bank account and follow, this guy's videos. And, yeah.
Applause for that. Okay, Amir.
If you go to the DarkFi website and you go to our docs, and you click the hamburger on the left, we have a section called Learn, and that's a full course that you can use to learn about political philosophy, to learn about development, to become a developer, to equip you with the tools of power. And we also offer mentorship for people. So essentially, you have to become a leader. You have to learn political philosophy, read Manifesto for a Democratic Civilization by Öcalan, learn Python programming, and then also in terms of work, there is no shortage of things we need to create or things we need to develop.
Well said. I think that'll be the last one, right?
Yes, that sounds good. Another round of applause for our panelists here.
And one more round of applause for freedom. Come on. Here we go. We're in a good company here.
Yes, awesome.